أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونستهديه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهدي الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدًا عبده ورسوله انتجبه لولايته واختصه برسالته وأكرمه بالنبوة أمينًا على غيبه ورحمة للعالمين وصلى الله على محمد وعلى الطاهرين الذين ذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا أوصيكم عباد الله بتقوى الله. Today is the birth anniversary of our ninth Imam, Imam Muhammad al-Taqi alayhi salatu wassalam. Last week I had the names confused. It was the wafat of the 10th Imam and not 9th Imam last Friday. Today is the wiladat of the 9th Imam. And again, getting inspiration from his title, At-Taqi, would like to talk about this concept once more in a different perspective. Last Friday we talked about the taqwa of the tongue. Our ninth Imam lived only for about 25 years. And in that 25 years, 17 years were the time of his imamat. And this is where you see that his imamat began at a very young age, when he was only eight years old. And this was unprecedented in the history of our imams, that such a young person would, start his imamat. But keeping in mind that the youngest imam in the list of the 12 imams, the first youngest one, comes with the title of At-Taqwa. At-Taqi, somebody who has taqwa. And that itself is probably a very strong message given to us. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about taqwa in an interesting way in Surah Araf, Surah number 7, ayat 26, where He talks about libas. Libas means clothing, garments. He says, Ya bani Adam, قد أنزلنا عليكم لباسا يواري سوآتكم وريشا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, O the children of Adam, we have sent down upon you libasan, clothing. For what? Describes two reasons for it. Yuwari sawatikum, so that you may, conceal your private parts. So covering ourselves is one function of libas. Varisha. And clothing are also means of making ourselves presentable in the society. It's a basis of, beauty, zinat for us. But then immediately, after talking about this libas that we have on us, to conceal ourselves, to make ourselves more presentable in society, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala immediately goes to a different level. He talks about this spiritual libas, and He says, وَلِبَاسُ التَّقْوَى ذَلِكَ خَيْرٌ. He says, I have given you this physical libas, for a very good purpose. But remember, there is something else known as libasul taqwa. The libas and the garment of taqwa, ذَلِكَ خَيْرٌ, that is better. ذَلِكَ مِنْ آيَاتِ اللَّهِ لَعَلَّهُمْ يَذَّكَّرُونَ. This is self, talking about physical libas and spiritual libas. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, if you look at it, these are the signs of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for those who remember the message of Allah. As far as the first libas is concerned, to cover ourselves physically, we know everybody uses it. Muslim, non-Muslim, believer, non-believer, muttaqi and fasiq, everybody. But then the other libas, which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about, libasul taqwa. What is this? And where is it sold? Where do you go and buy libasul taqwa? This is where we have to think about it. Number one, this libasul taqwa is a spiritual garment. It is actually a garment which is made from two materials. Normally, our clothing has an outer part of it and then there is an inner part of it. The outer part of that material, the spiritual libas, is the fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But inside it is the material which is based on the love for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the khawf and the fear is based on love for Allah. We fear not Allah Himself. We fear displeasing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala because we love Him. So khawf and hub becomes two important parts of the fabrics of libasul taqwa. Where do we buy it? Who is going to sell it to us? Unfortunately, there is no dukan and shop for it. Nobody can sell it to you, nobody can make it for you. It is a libas which is self-made. You can't buy it anywhere. We will have to make that libasul taqwa ourselves. And it has to be made. It doesn't come ready-made. And this is where, Amir al-Mu'mineen, Imam al-Muttaqeen, when he talks about the relationship between the person and his taqwa, he says it's a two-way street. You protect your taqwa, the taqwa will protect you. So you have to make it yourself. You have to protect it, keep it clean, and so that it's not worn out. And this is where we have to realize that the function of that libas of taqwa is basically this immunity from temptations that come along the way. If we have that taqwa, then even if we live in a corrupt society, we will not be touched by corruption. And that's where, in another statement from him, he says, Dar hisnin aziz. The taqwa is actually a castle, a very strong castle around you. And if you have that, then you are immune from the temptations of committing sins. Our Imam, who carries this title of At-Taqi, was the youngest, as I said earlier. And keeping that age in mind, let me briefly talk more to the younger people here about resisting the temptation of the biggest problem in the society, which is alcoholic drinks. And keeping in mind that we live in this environment, of course, this problem is not only for the West, even the Muslim world suffers from it. And if you study this, literature about alcoholic drinks, why people drink that. It's part of the culture in some parts of the world. But basically it boils down to two reasons. Number one, it's considered to be status symbol or a statement of, a fashion statement. Especially in South Asian culture, once people have more money, in their parties and their, dinners, if they don't have imported sharab, they are not looked upon as high-class members of the society. So one, element is this issue of, status symbol. And another, and probably a major part of it, is that many people, in order to run away from their own problems in life, they go into this habit of drinking. And when we look at both basic reasons for this, we have to realize, as a Muslim, what is this status symbol for us? Look at the word Muslim. A Muslim is somebody who submits to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What is the symbol for us? A status symbol for a Muslim is to be the abd of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What is this, what people say, oh, what do you serve in your dinner parties and this and that? No. They are there. Today your money goes away, your friends will be forgotten. They will not remember you at all. Whereas Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala never goes away. We go away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and when we do tawbah, we return to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. His door is never closed. It's we who move away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So remember, this status symbol is the esteem about ourselves in the eyes of Allah, in the eyes of Rasul, and the eyes of the Imam of the time, Ajjalallahu ta'ala farajahu sharif. Those who drink because they think, well, we have many problems, cannot cope with it. Well, this is actually running away from the problem. This is not resolution of the problem. When you become sober again, the problem will still be there. Not only that it will be there, the problems would have been multiplied because of drinking. If you look at this issue from medical point of view, health reasons, social ills of, we can't, this is not the forum or the timing to go into details, but just one statement from World Health Organization. And this is from 1994, and I'll give you another one, more recent one. It's very interesting. This is in early 90s, mid 90s, when the so-called Mediterranean culture was being promoted. That if you drink, a little bit of red wine, your health, your heart would be strong. This was being promoted. And at that time, the World Health Organization made a statement against it. And part of what they said was that the best way to handle alcohol is to drink as little as possible, and preferably not at all. If I had said this is in the Quran, this is World Health Organization saying preferably not at all. This is in 1994. 2010, the statement from the most senior medical officer in UK describing alcohol as a more dangerous drug than heroin and crack cocaine. What is considered to be part of the culture, the senior most medical officer in 2010 in the United Kingdom is saying a more dangerous drug than heroin and crack cocaine, which are forbidden, and this is okay. On a social level, the ills which come with this, addiction, 1/3 of the traffic deaths are related to drunk drivers. Majority of domestic violence is attributed to alcohol. Breakup of families, and so many social problems which are there, to the extent that we have a statement from the senior scientist at Toronto Center for Addiction and Mental Health in year 2010, where he says, once you look into the science, you will see that alcohol is currently doing the most harm in our societies. Go back to the Quran. Go back to the Quran. 1400 years ago, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says very clearly, إِنَّمَا يُرِيدُ الشَّيْطَانُ أَنْ يُوقِعَ بَيْنَكُمُ الْعَدَاوَةَ وَالْبَغْضَاءَ فِي الْخَمْرِ وَالْمَيْسِرِ. That it is Shaitan, verily, who wants to create animosity among you and to create hatred among you through alcohol and gambling. وَيَصُدُّكُمْ عَنْ ذِكْرِ اللَّهِ وَعَنِ الصَّلَاةِ. And he wants by these means to prevent you from remembering Allah and from doing your salat. فَهَلْ أَنْتُمْ مُنْتَهُونَ? Are you going to resist and refrain from this or not? And so Quran 1400 years ago talked about it. And therefore in Islam there is no issue of moderation in drinking. It is totally forbidden. The way I say many times to the non-Muslim groups who come here, that we don't just say that don't drink and drive, we say don't drink at all. It's as simple as that. And this issue has been emphasized in the Shia fiqh. And I know I'm going to make things difficult, but this is the mas'ala. That it's not only drinking which is haram. Even to sit on the table where alcohol is being served to somebody else, you can't sit there. And that is actually to keep us away from this issue, from this bala, of addiction to alcohol. So the further you stay away from it, that is better from the perspective of Allah, Rasul, and the Imam of the time. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us that libas al-taqwa. May He give us the ability to maintain it and preserve it so that we can, maintain our immunity against temptations to commit sin. إن أحسن الحديث كتاب الله العزيز بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله الذي لا إله إلا هو الحليم الكريم غافر الذنب وقابل التوب وهو الغفور الرحيم سبحان من سبقت رحمته غضبه وبسط اليدين بالرحمة سبحان من لم يكلف نفسا إلا دون وسعها وعفى عن السيئات ولم يجاز بها ونشهد أن لا إله إلا هو العطوف للعباد بجوده والعواد على المذنبين بحلمه ونشهد أن محمدا نبيه وحبيبه سيد المرسلين وخاتم النبيين بعثه رحمة للعالمين صلى الله عليه وآله الداعين إلى سبيل الله بالحكمة والموعظة الحسنة قادة الأمم وأولياء النعمة ومعدن الرحمة أوصيكم عباد الله بالتوبة عما سلف من ذنوبكم. Talking about the issue of libas al-taqwa, the garment of taqwa, you to realize it's not the physical libas. It's not the issue of, maintaining the physical hijab, for example. No, it covers everything. Whether we talk about the hijab of the dress, the hijab of the eyes, even the issue of interaction in society between those who are from opposite genders and not related to one another. This is where the libas of taqwa comes in. If the libas of taqwa would be there, all other kinds of hijab would be in its place. Otherwise you will see this, different kinds of hijab, half hijab, and this is because the inner libas of taqwa is not complete, or it's weak. Islam does not stop men and women who are not related to one another from interaction, provided it is done with hijab and it's done in a formal business-like setting, not a social kind of gathering. It's interesting that when we talk about these issues, we are given different kinds of labels. But sometimes it's important to bring examples from other communities, just to see we are not alone in this planet who believe in this way. Two items of news which was forwarded to me, I thought I would share with you. Recently, Israel's Deputy Minister of Health refused to shake hands of his Belgian counterpart. It was a lady, because it was forbidden to touch members of opposite sex in his faith. If a Muslim would have done, according to New York Times, just recently, in the last 2 weeks, a rally was organized in New York City Field Stadium in which tens of thousands, the numbers given is 40,000 ultra-Orthodox Jewish men had gathered to hear about the dangers of internet. The theme is very relevant, very true even from our value perspective. But this was a men-only gathering, thousands of them. Why? Because in keeping with the ultra-Orthodox tradition of separating the sexes. If we had done it, immediately we'll be told this is anti-Canadian value, this is anti-West. Not from outsiders, from many those who are in the Muslim society. Those who are basically don't like Islam themselves anyway, but carry the Muslim names. And this is where we have to realize that, I actually respect those who stand up for their values. They say this is what our faith is. If you don't like it, that's your problem. We are not forcing you to follow us, but give us that freedom to exercise and practice our own faith according to our own values. Salawat alayhi. اللهم صل على سيد المرسلين والشفيع المذنبين نبينا محمد صلى الله عليه وآله وعلى إمام المتقين وأمير المؤمنين علي بن أبي طالب صلوات الله عليه وعلى سيدة نساء العالمين سيدتنا فاطمة بنت رسول الله صلوات الله عليها وعلى سيد شباب أهل الجنة الحسن المجتبى والحسين الشهيد بكربلاء عليهم الصلاة والسلام اللهم صل على أئمة المسلمين علي بن الحسين ومحمد بن علي وجعفر بن محمد وموسى بن جعفر وعلي بن موسى ومحمد بن علي وعلي بن محمد والحسن بن علي عليهم الصلاة والسلام اللهم صل على مولانا الحجة بن الحسن صاحب العصر والزمان ماحي آثار البدء والطغيان هادم أمنية الشرك والنفاق حاسد فروع البغي والشقاق صلوات الله وسلامه عليه وعلى آبائه الكرام ما اتصلت الليالي والأيام اللهم عجل فرجه وسهل مخرجه واكحل ناظرنا بنظرة منا إليه واجعلنا من المستشهدين بين يديه ربنا لا تؤاخذنا إن نسينا وأخطأنا ربنا ولا تحمل علينا إصرا كما حملت على الذين من قبلنا ربنا ولا تحملنا ما لا طاقة لنا به واعف عنا واغفر لنا وارحمنا أنت مولانا فانصرنا على القوم الكافرين اللهم اجعلنا ممن يذكر فتنفعه الذكرى إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون